No, we have a system where we offer, usually over the telephone, although it can be in the office if people prefer it, but most times they seem to like it to deal with it over the telephone, of up to perhaps half an hour of a completely no obligation, cost-free discussion. It's more of an assessment rather than detailed advice, because in half an hour you don't have time to go into the sort of detail that you would need to give detailed advice. But it is long enough to give people a general steer as to what their options are. Quite often they don't have clear understanding, for example, of what the grounds for divorce are, because the press doesn't always produce an accurate view of it. So we're able to give them an idea as to what the options are, what the potential costs are, how to deal with it, and then very much the ball is back in the client's court or the potential client's court to decide if so and to what extent we can assist them. And then we leave it to them to decide if and when they want to come back to us. If they don't, that's fine. If they do, then we're delighted. So, but there's no obligation at all, completely cost-free, just for a general discussion. There's only one ground for divorce, which is that the marriage has broken down irretrievably. The law could do with some modernising, because at the moment it hasn't been changed for about since the 1960s, and it's not really fit for purpose now. Because it requires you to prove that the marriage is broken down irretrievably. So even if two people agree that their marriage is over, they can't get divorced just because they agree. One of them has to prove something. And what they have to prove in order to get the irretrievable breakdown through is either that the other party has committed adultery, or that the other person has behaved in a way that the person doing the divorcing can't reasonably be expected to put up with, or that the parties have lived apart for a period of 2 years and they both agree at the end of that time that there should be a divorce. There's then a completely mad one, which is 2 years desertion, which I've never done in all the years I've been doing divorce. Don't think I ever will. I won't bother you with it now. And then the last one is that they've lived apart for 5 years. After 5 years separation, you don't need the positive consent of the other person. After 2 years separation, you need to have their positive consent. So if they've gone missing, or if they're just awkward and don't want to give positive consent, and you don't have the other grounds because there's no adultery and no unreasonable behaviour, then in that scenario you might find that you would have to wait until 5 years separation, but it's pretty rare for that to happen. So the vast majority of divorces are either adultery, unreasonable behaviour, or 2 years separation and consent. The only way you can get divorced after 2 years separation is if you have the positive consent of the other person. So in a 2-year divorce, very rare this, because after 2 years most people accept that the marriage is over. But after a 2-year divorce, if you've got somebody who is religiously opposed to divorce or just not wanting a divorce, they could still scupper that by saying no. They don't have to incur any cost, they just say no. If you're going for a divorce on 5 years separation, you don't need their consent at all. If you're going for a divorce on either behaviour or adultery, then for the adultery divorce you really do need proof, and that's best provided by an admission. If they're not going to want a divorce on adultery, they're not going to admit it. Unreasonable behaviour, they can defend it and they can stop it by defending it, but only if they successfully defend it, and the vast majority of people don't. The 20 to 26 weeks is just for the divorce itself. If there were to be a dispute over children and or finances, then conceivably that dispute could take several months to resolve. So that timescale I'm talking about is just from being married to being divorced. Anything else, if it's disputed, could extend well beyond that.